Hi everybody, and welcome back to Lost Genre Reddit Stories. A quick warning before we begin. This story is centered on child abuse, so if you are sensitive to that topic, you might want to skip this story. Now let's begin. This post is from the subreddit Relationships, and it's by user Deleted, Recovered, Brother and Sister Unsu. My 20 male neighbor, 40s female, is genuinely offended that I don't want her son, 10 male, to play with my little sister, 10 female. But today, my sister told me something alarming that I need advice on how to handle. 3 months ago, my little sister Gianna and I moved to our current hometown from literally the other side of the country. We had been living with our parents for our entire lives, and to put it simply, they are extremely crappy people. They are hyper narcissists, abusive in every way, etc. After years and years of dealing with all of their crap, I had decided that enough was enough. I went through a very long and intensely painful legal battle to obtain custody of Gianna and become her legal guardian. I finally succeeded, and I decided that we needed to get away from where we grew up. One of my friends, Matt, 21 male, from high school goes to college in a relatively well-off small town. It's one of those wealthy college town places. He lives off campus in his own house, and he's made an offer for me and Gianna to live with him for a while. I thanked him immensely, took him up on his offer, and we've been living with him since then. I got a job and I pay rent to him, and Gianna goes to school around here. Ever since I got a job, I've been trying to save up money to move out of my friend's house and get me and Gianna our own place. I want to go to community college in the future and build a stable life for me and Gianna. The day that Gianna and I moved in with Matt, his next door neighbor, Linda, came over to talk to us. She brought us cookies and welcomed us to the neighborhood. She also brought along her son, Sam, to meet Gianna. She was extremely nosy about why we moved in with Matt. We told her where we're from, but that was about it. We didn't want to talk about our past with such a nosy lady. She kept pestering us with questions until Gianna finally said, "It's none of your business." Linda looked very offended when she said that. She left us with the cookies, but she stormed back into her house, dragging her son with her. When Matt came back from class, we told him about our encounter with Linda, but he just laughed and told us she was nothing to worry about. According to him, she was extremely passive-aggressive, and that was all there was to it. The rest of the neighbors hate her guts. We didn't know what else to think, so we took his word for it. For roughly a week, Linda didn't talk to us, but eventually she came around and apologized. She said that she didn't want to get off on the wrong foot with us. She brought Sam with her again and wanted him to get to know Gianna. The only interaction they had shared at that point was waiting at the bus stop together, and Linda wanted them to spend some time together today. I always ask Gianna if she's okay with these kinds of things before they happen, and she gave me a look that said she basically didn't give a crap about spending an hour with Sam. They went outside to play, and Linda invited me over to her house for coffee. As soon as we sat down, Linda made a comment to me about what Gianna said to her last week, telling her that our past was none of her business. She thought Gianna had been rude and disrespectful. I don't know if all kids are like this, but Gianna often tells it like it is. She doesn't behave that way to purposely antagonize anyone, however. I explained to Linda that Gianna is pretty straight up about what she thinks and that she didn't mean to provoke her on purpose. I didn't apologize for what Gianna said though, because I agree with Gianna that our past is none of Linda's business. It seemed like Linda was expecting me to apologize, but when I didn't, she looked intensely bothered. She quickly changed the subject, however, and she started to blab about the funny things that Sam says. I won't go into detail on that because I'll bore everyone to death, but I'll just say that from her stories that Sam seems like a problematic kid, spoiled, mouthy, badly behaved, etc. I also learned that Linda seems hell-bent on presenting her family as picture-perfect as she possibly can. She has an older son and an older daughter who I've never seen, but from her account are the best kids to ever walk this earth. She seems like a major perfectionist to me. After the hour at Linda's, I went back home and found Gianna in the kitchen. I asked her how Sam was, and she said he was fine. She added, "He's a total brat, but I can deal with him," when she saw the surprised look on my face, as I hadn't expected him to just be fine. Gianna is a pretty resilient little kid though, so I trusted her to take care of herself when Sam is around. A few days later, Linda brought over her husband, Sam's father, Jim, for us to meet. He had just returned from a business trip and he was heading off on another one in a few days, so Linda didn't want his opportunity to meet us to slip away. He seemed 100% disengaged throughout my entire conversation with him. He kept checking his phone and at one point he stepped out of the room to take a call. I inferred from this behavior that he's probably a very busy man. After living next door to Linda and her family for about 3 months, it's become clear that Sam truly is a miniature piece of crap. At the bus stop, he pokes and flicks Gianna and doesn't relent until she yells at him to stop. On the bus, he sat behind her and kicked the seat constantly until the bus driver forced him to sit in the back of the bus. At school, they're in the same class, and on the first day she arrived, he told the entire class that he saw her looking through his bedroom window the first night we moved in. Obviously, this is 100% BS, alienating her from the very start. During class, he steals her supplies, calls her names, etc. When they're at home and the neighborhood kids are around, he constantly makes fun of her and makes rude comments about her to the other kids. Gianna always tells me about these incidents before anyone else does, which I think is pretty irresponsible on the school's part and on our neighbor's part. I talked to both the bus driver and their teacher, and they said they would keep an eye on Sam, but I'm pretty sure nothing will come out of that. I tried talking to Linda a few times, but she kept brushing me off, saying that it's just what boys do, and even suggesting that Sam may have a crush on Gianna. However, when Gianna and Sam aren't in school or when they aren't around other kids, Sam behaves completely differently. He comes over almost every single day asking Gianna if she wants to play. Strangely, Gianna usually says yes. I kept telling her that she doesn't have to play with him if she doesn't want to. He's a little a-hole and doesn't even deserve to play with her. Honestly, I have no idea how this kid has friends, but she always insists that she's okay when she plays with him. She never comes home crying or upset after she spends time with him. Every time I ask her how their playing was, she says it was fine. If I press further, she tells me to stop worrying, so I take that as a sign that she's okay. I've recently started keeping an eye on Gianna and Sam if I'm around, and Sam behaves very oddly. He still teases her, but she teases him back, which seems to surprise him. On some days he's in a bad mood and it shows in his conversations with Gianna. He complains endlessly, but Gianna is pretty patient with him, way more than I would be if I was a 10-year-old kid. But on other days, he's cheery and friendly toward her, and they have a good time. Honestly, their relationship is a mystery to me. However, yesterday, I was in the kitchen cooking, and I overheard them yelling extremely loudly. I ran outside and found Gianna crying. Still sobbing, she told me that they had been playing on her Nintendo DS, and Sam had lost their game to her for the 3rd time in a row. He had grabbed her DS out of her hands and snapped it in two, breaking it. Her DS was the only thing of value she owned. She yelled at him and he actually swung a fist at her. The punch didn't land because she grabbed his arm in time, but since she's been physically abused in the past, she was basically having an emotional breakdown. This was the last straw for me. I angrily told Sam he was no longer allowed to play with Gianna anymore. I didn't call him a F-hole to his face, but I sure wanted to. Sam ran inside crying. I took Gianna inside. A few minutes later, Linda stormed into the house screaming like a banshee. She told me that Gianna was a horrible little girl and that she was not raised well in the slightest. She said she needed manners and that if she was her kid, she would be disciplined the proper way. I didn't even get the chance to explain to her that her son was the piece of crap, not Gianna, because she left before I could say a word. I have no idea what Sam said to his mom to provoke her response, but it was probably a huge lie. I spent the rest of the night taking care of Gianna. I cooked her favorite meal for dinner and we watched a movie together. I even laid down with her in her bed when she went to sleep. This morning I told her she didn't have to go to school if she didn't want to, but she said she was okay. Then the following happened this afternoon. Gianna came running into the house after school. She told me that Sam came to school late today and that he had a broken arm and a gigantic black eye. Even the teacher was shocked. The entire class kept asking him what happened, but all the kids said was that he had fallen down the stairs at home. When Gianna approached him at recess asking him if he was okay, he didn't respond and he walked away as quickly as he could. When I heard this, I instantly saw major red flags and Gianna did too. But my question for you guys is, where should I go from here? My initial instinct was to call the police. The reason I'm hesitating is that the only evidence I have is Sam's appearance. Linda has never, and I mean never, shown any signs of physical or emotional abuse, and believe me, I know the signs. Perfectionism sometimes exists alongside emotional abuse, but I have never been around Linda when she hasn't showered her son with praise and affection. She constantly talks about how much she loves him and she's involved as a parent leader in every single one of his activities. She will go to infinite lengths to defend him when he F's up, as I saw yesterday, and she seems to think that he can do no wrong. If the authorities show up at her doorstep, I have reason to believe that she would act perfectly sane about the entire situation, because appearance is everything to her. I'm guessing that she'll act like everything is 100% A-okay, and once the authorities leave, she'll turn on me, or even worse, on my sister for telling me about Sam's condition. When she ran into the house yesterday to scream at me, I just thought she was an effing crazy parent. After today, I have no clue what to think about her. I asked Gianna if Sam has ever shown any signs of going through abuse of any kind, and she said no. Whenever he complains, which is practically 24/7, it's never about his family. In fact, she said he never talks about his family. This only added to my confusion. So Reddit, what should I do? I am completely lost as to where to go from here. Matt hasn't returned from classes yet, so I'll fill him in when he gets back, and hopefully I'll have some more background on Linda soon. Sam is a little crap, but that certainly doesn't mean he deserves a broken arm and a black eye. Well, OP, based on the information that you have given us, I would call CPS whether you have proof or not. It's their job to investigate. You just need to file the claim. And even if unfortunately they are unable to prove that Linda has abused Sam in any way, I think it would still stay in the radar considering that Sam has a black eye and a broken arm. Even though that from what I googled, a black eye and a broken arm are consistent with falling down the stairs. And also OP, this is the first quote-unquote accident that you have seen, but maybe there has been abuse in the past and a teacher saw it or other friends or other people from the neighborhood have seen it. So regardless of whatever kind of thing you've seen from Linda or Jim at this point, which he's basically non-existent, you still need to call CPS and file a complaint. And what do you guys think OP should do? Let me know in the comment section, and now let's move on to the community comments to see what they said. Hellafitz says, quote, "She would be disciplined the proper way," end quote. "This to me is a sign of abuse, or at least accepting abuse from Linda. Sam acted out in that way because he picks it up from home. He's 10 for F's sake. Was Jim home at the time? If I had to take a guess at what happened, Sam went home agitated, Jim beat him for it, and Linda blamed it on you. If he wasn't home, Linda can't control herself and hates herself for it, so she blamed you. This kid is clearly being raised in an aggressive household. Call CPS. Xenoplastic says, "I'd only add one other thing. You mentioned that he comes around after school and it surprised you because they don't seem too friendly at school. I think that's a sign that he doesn't want to be at home alone with his parents. It explains why he'd try most days to spend time with another person even if he wasn't a big fan of your sister, because it's a lesser evil to him." Mrs. Havoc 133 says, "First off, I give you huge props for being an amazing brother and human being. I'm sure deciding to make this huge change for you and your sister was difficult, but it sounds like you made the right one. As far as your neighbors are concerned, I would definitely contact CPS with your concerns. Do it like tomorrow so the injuries are still fresh enough to make a case. All you have to say is child abuse and they will be knocking on her door. Maybe have some accounts of odd or abusive behavior you can offer them, as it will build a stronger case. Sounds like one of the parents hit their kid, so this obviously needs to be addressed. And your sister definitely doesn't need to be exposed to any more abuse of any kind, even if indirect." Well, the community definitely agrees that OP needs to report this, and unfortunately OP didn't reply to any comments, so now we head on straight to the update to see what happened next and how the story ends. To everyone who replied to my first post, which was a lot of people, holy crap. Thanks a bunch for all of your thoughts. I read as many comments as I could, and I took everything you guys said into mind when I approached the situation yesterday. So, the first thing we did yesterday morning was to move into a different house for the time being. Matt brought a friend, Greg, 24 male, home with him 2 nights ago, and after hearing the story, Greg was horrified and said we should crash at his place for a couple of days. His house is in a different neighborhood that is far away from Linda to the point where she won't know where we are. When Matt came back 2 nights ago, I filled him in on the whole story. He was very surprised. He said he couldn't remember ever hearing of Sam being so injured. I asked Matt if Linda has ever shown any weird behavior outside of her perfectionism, and he said no. This really strengthened the suggestion that Linda is a narcissist. Matt spent some time looking the term up, and now he definitely believes that she is one. Matt stayed home from class yesterday and went around asking the neighbors if they had seen what Sam looked like 2 days before. We were hoping to get some insight and maybe support from his neighbors on how to help Sam. Some of them had seen him and some of them hadn't. Both types didn't seem to care. Great, right? Even if they all hate Linda, we figured that maybe they would want to help the kid, but it was a dead end. Gianna stayed home from school yesterday. She wanted to go see if Sam was there, but I told her no. Keeping your advice in mind, I spent a while talking to her about what makes a healthy relationship and about what makes an unhealthy one. I told her she shouldn't put up with Sam if he was mean to her, and she needed to say no if he was bothering her. She cried and told me Sam was the only kid who had talked to her and she didn't have any friends. That might be the reason why she kept playing with him even when he was mean to her. I tried my best to comfort her. I told her I was going to the school today. I said I was going to try to get her into a different class, away from Sam, so that she can make friends. I told her Sam was definitely in a bad situation right now, but I couldn't let him be around her anymore because it wasn't safe for her. However, I was going to try to help him as much as I could. She looked happy to hear that. After talking to Gianna, I went to the school and asked to talk to the head guidance counselor. I had to wait like an hour though. I also had to go up to the front desk a couple of times to remind them who I was and why I was there. Eventually, I managed to get in, although not to see the head guidance counselor, just a regular one. I explained to her what Gianna saw and what class she was in. She told me the counselor's office had gotten a report from her teacher and CPS had already been called. That was really good to hear. I asked the counselor if Sam has behaved badly in the past and she said yes. All the guidance counselors know Sam. According to this one, his behavior has been terrible ever since he started school. She said that other parents have been pushing for him to get removed from their kids' classes since day one. He has never been moved, because of Linda probably, but enough parents have complained that now it's easy to move kids to a different class if they want to move, said the counselor. Was it not easy before? What the F? I asked for Gianna to be moved to a different class and she said she would try to make it happen. I thanked her and went back to Greg's house. After a couple of hours, I called Matt and asked him if CPS had shown up yet and he said no. This pissed me off. The counselor's office had called them already, right? At that point, I decided to call CPS myself. I told them everything I knew and saw, adding suggestions that you guys brought up as to the source and traits of Linda and Sam's behavior. They said they had gotten the report from the school and they were heading over to Linda's. Matt called me about a half hour later and told me CPS had shown up. I made sure that Gianna was safe with Greg and I went to Matt's house. When I pulled into his driveway, I could hear Linda arguing with CPS inside her house. I went inside Matt's house and about an hour later someone knocked on his door. It was CPS. They said they couldn't tell us much, but they wanted to let us know that Linda and Jim are under investigation and watch. They told us to keep the doors locked at all times and that if we saw or heard any more suspicious behavior, we should call them right away. When we asked about Sam, they said he was being taken care of. It was really vague, but I guess it's better than nothing. And that's all I have. I'm glad that Sam got some sort of attention. Matt, Greg and I talked and we decided that it would be best for me and Gianna to move in with Greg. He lives further away from Linda and it would be much safer. I will pay rent to him and everything. He also lives in a different school district, so Gianna will be going to a different school. I went to the school yesterday to find a counselor and I set up appointments in the future to try to find a therapist for Gianna. The office at her previous school seemed somewhat not responsive, so I'm glad she'll have a fresh start at this new school. Thanks everyone! Well, OP, you did the right thing. Of course you don't know how this investigation is going to go since you're moving away and all, but hopefully Sam will get the attention that he needs and also will be put in a safer place. Thanks for sharing, OP, and take care. Now, let's finish this video with a mood booster post. This post is from the subreddit Malicious Compliance, and it's by user Gritman02. The toilet seat. So, my wife and I have been married for almost 18 years. When we first met, I was a work in progress, leaving cabinets open, letting dishes soak, putting the toilet paper on the holder the wrong way, etc. I am still amazed that she's still with me. Most of the things I admit I was wrong or okay compromising to make us happy. One thing that I didn't want to compromise on was putting the toilet seat down after using the toilet. She didn't lift it up after she used it, so why should I put it down? We had several small arguments about this. I soon realized I was never going to win, so since then I have not only put the seat down, but also the seat cover down, so she has to at least lift it before she uses the toilet. Small victories. Small victories, OP. Small victories. Thank you so much for sharing. And it's that time that we've reached the end of the video. I hope you enjoyed today's stories. I really did enjoy reading them to you. So if you did, then don't be shy and go ahead and give the video a like. And don't forget to subscribe or even share this video with people that you might think will enjoy my storytelling. Also, if you have the time, go down to the video description and check out all the links I have for you, from our Discord community to my channel merch. And finally, I'd like to say thank you for watching. It really means a lot to me that you enjoy my videos. And having said all that, I'll see you guys in the next video.